It was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. My daughter Jasmine was getting married. The grand ballroom in Charlotte, North Carolina, was filled with the laughter and chatter of 200 guests, all dressed in their finest. The music was playing softly in the background, and everything seemed perfect. My daughter, looking radiant, stood beside her new husband, and I couldn't help but feel proud. But everything changed in an instant. As I stood in the back, quietly admiring the happy couple, Jasmine turned and spotted me. The smile on her face faded, and for a brief moment, I saw something in her eyes that took me by surprise. Before I could understand what was happening, she pointed directly at me and shouted, "That's the fat ass we have to put up with." The room went silent. The guests, who had been laughing and enjoying the evening, now turned to stare at me, their eyes filled with disgust. It was as if I had become invisible, but in the worst way possible. I felt every pair of eyes on me, judging me, mocking me. My face burned with shame, and my hands began to tremble. I gripped the small gift I had brought for the couple, trying to steady myself, but it was as if the world around me had crumbled. How could this be happening? My own daughter at her wedding humiliated me in front of everyone. I couldn't understand why she was acting this way. Was she ashamed of me? Was this really the daughter I had raised with so much love? I tried to hold it together, but the sting of her words felt unbearable. The room was silent for what felt like an eternity. And then, something unexpected happened. Mr. Sterling, the groom's father, stood up. He had been laughing along with everyone else, but now his face was filled with shock. His eyes locked onto mine, and he slowly began walking toward me. "Wait," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Aren't you my new boss?" I froze. The guests continued to stare at me, unsure of what was happening. I couldn't process what Mr. Sterling had just said. What did he mean? Was he talking to me? I hadn't met him before, but he was looking at me as if he knew me. The confusion on everyone's faces was evident. Jasmine, who had been laughing just moments ago, now looked at me with wide eyes. She seemed just as stunned as the rest of the room. Mr. Sterling took another step closer, his eyes never leaving mine. "Is this really you?" he asked, still in disbelief. "Eleanor Baines?" I nodded, my heart racing. "Yes, I'm Eleanor Baines," I said, my voice shaking. It felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. How did he know my name? Why was he looking at me like that? Mr. Sterling took a deep breath and pulled out his phone. "You're the one who bought my company, right?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. My company? I didn't own any company. Or at least that's what I thought. But now I could see the recognition in his eyes, and I knew something was wrong. The room, once filled with laughter, was now completely silent, and every single person was staring at me. Jasmine's face turned pale. She looked from her father-in-law to me, and then back again. "What is he talking about, Mr. Sterling?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What do you mean she's your boss?" Mr. Sterling didn't respond immediately. Instead, he pulled out his phone and started scrolling through something. I watched him, my heart racing as I tried to make sense of what was happening. This was all too much. I just wanted to disappear, to leave this nightmare behind. But Mr. Sterling wasn't done. "This can't be," he muttered to himself. "You're the one who bought Sterling Corporation for $45 million just 2 weeks ago, right?" Jasmine looked at me, her eyes widening in shock. She couldn't believe what she was hearing, and honestly neither could I. $45 million? I didn't have that kind of money. How could I have bought a company? The room was filled with whispers now, as people tried to figure out what was going on. Jasmine, who had been laughing at my expense just moments ago, now stood frozen in place, her face pale. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I looked around at the people who had been so quick to judge me. They all had the same look on their faces now. Confusion, disbelief, and fear. Mr. Sterling, still holding his phone, was shaking his head as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "You're A.J. Beaumont," he said slowly, his voice barely audible. "You're the mysterious buyer of my company. The one who saved it from bankruptcy." Everything seemed to stop. My breath caught in my throat. He had just said the name I had kept hidden for so long. A.J. Beaumont. That was the name I had used in all my business dealings. No one knew who I was except for those who had to. But now here I was standing in front of 200 people, being recognized for something I had kept secret for decades. Jasmine stood there speechless. Her eyes darted between me and her father-in-law. "Is this true, Mom?" she finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. I looked at her, my heart aching. "Yes," I said softly. "It's true. I'm E.J. Beaumont." The silence in the room was deafening. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Everyone was waiting for me to say something, anything to explain what was happening. But there was no explanation. This was the truth I had been hiding for so long. And then I saw it. The shift in Jasmine's eyes. The greed. The hunger. It was as if a switch had been flipped, and suddenly everything changed. The daughter who had publicly humiliated me now saw me for who I really was. Not her mother, but someone powerful, someone who could solve her problems. But that was the problem, wasn't it? She only cared about me now because of what I could give her. The thought made my stomach churn. The guests around us were still whispering, and I could feel their eyes on me. Some of them were judging me, others were just curious. But all I could think about was Jasmine, my daughter who had treated me like I was invisible, like I was nothing. And now, suddenly, I was everything to her. "I don't want anything from you," I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "I didn't buy your company for recognition or for thanks. I did it because it was the right thing to do." Jasmine's face fell. "But you have money," she said slowly. "You've always had money. All these years you've been hiding it from me." "No," I said firmly. "I haven't been hiding anything. I've just been living my life the way I wanted to. Quietly, privately. And I'm done with the games." But there was more to this story. There was more that Jasmine didn't know. More that no one knew. And soon she would find out exactly what it meant to cross me. But there was more to this story. There was more that Jasmine didn't know. More that no one knew. And soon she would find out exactly what it meant to cross me. The tension in the room was palpable. The guests, still shocked by the revelation, began to murmur amongst themselves. I could feel their eyes on me, but I kept my focus on Jasmine. She stood frozen, her mind clearly racing, trying to piece together the truth she had just uncovered. "Mama, I don't understand," Jasmine stammered, her voice shaky. "Why didn't you tell me? All these years you kept this from me." I shook my head slowly. "I didn't keep it from you, Jasmine. I just never saw the need to share it. What was the point? You never cared to know who I really was. You never took the time to understand me or my life." My voice cracked slightly, the weight of those words heavier than I expected. Jasmine looked down at the floor, unable to meet my eyes. I could see the guilt starting to creep into her expression, but it wasn't enough. "Not yet. I never had a choice, did I?" she whispered. "You always made sure I thought you were just a cleaner. You made sure I thought you were nothing." There was bitterness in her voice, and yet there was a small flicker of something else, regret, maybe? "No," I said firmly. "I never made you think anything. You chose to see me the way you wanted to see me. You chose to believe that your success, your life, was something you earned while I was invisible. You never once asked me what I did, what I could do." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "You were too busy judging me, pretending you were better than me." Jasmine's eyes widened, and I could see the shock in her face as she processed the words I had just spoken. I never thought of it like that," she murmured, but her voice lacked conviction. It was as if she was trying to convince herself that this wasn't the truth. But deep down she knew it was. Mr. Sterling, who had been standing silently off to the side, cleared his throat. "Miss Beaumont," he said, addressing me now with a new level of respect. "I didn't know. I didn't realize who I was dealing with. I'm truly sorry for my part in this." His words were sincere, but I knew it wasn't just about him. It was about everyone who had looked at me like I didn't matter. I nodded, acknowledging his apology. But my focus remained on Jasmine. "You think it's all about money, don't you? You think now that you know the truth, you can get everything you've ever wanted. That I'll swoop in and solve all your problems." She looked at me, her face filled with confusion. "What are you talking about? I never asked you for money." "Not directly," I said coldly. "But you've always treated me like I was nothing, like I was a means to an end. And now that you know I'm successful, I can see it in your eyes. You're thinking about what I can give you, what I can fix for you. But that's not how this works. Jasmine opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Instead, her eyes darted toward Mr. Sterling, then back at me. She seemed to be calculating something in her mind. And I knew deep down that this was only the beginning. She hadn't fully realized what she had just walked into. For years I had lived a quiet life. I had been invisible. I had built an empire from the ground up, one investment at a time. I had lived simply, saving every penny, listening to the conversations of powerful people who had no idea they were being overheard. I had watched as Jasmine grew up, seeing how she took everything for granted, how she dismissed me as nothing but a cleaning lady. But now it was time for her to see the truth. Jasmine, I said, my voice firm, you've spent years treating me like I was nothing. But I'm not your savior. I'm not going to fix your mistakes. You have to fix them yourself. She looked at me, a flicker of desperation in her eyes. I'm sorry, Mom, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I never meant to treat you like that. I never realized how hard you worked, how much you gave up. I just thought you were just a cleaning lady. Her words trailed off, and I could see her guilt written all over her face. For the first time in years, I felt a pang of something inside me. Was it pity? Regret? I didn't know. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let her off the hook so easily. You've made your choices, Jasmine, I said, my voice steady. And now you have to live with them. You can't just waltz back into my life and expect everything to be fixed because you're sorry. It doesn't work like that. She nodded, tears starting to fill her eyes. But I wasn't done. You want to know the truth? I asked, my voice dropping to a whisper. I bought your husband's company because I saw what he couldn't see. I saw the potential. I saw the families that depended on it. But it wasn't just about saving a company. It was about proving something. To you. To everyone who ever thought I was nothing. Jasmine's eyes widened. What do you mean? She asked, her voice trembling. I mean, I said, my eyes locking onto hers, that I've spent the last 30 years quietly building an empire while you were busy pretending I was nothing. I didn't buy the company for recognition. I did it because I wanted you to see that I was more than just the invisible woman you thought I was. I did it because I wanted you to understand that I've been watching. And I've been waiting for the right moment to show you who I really am. The room was dead silent. No one moved, no one spoke. It was as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting for the next move. Jasmine stood there, her face a mixture of shock and disbelief. You did all of that? For me. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She would have to figure that out on her own. The game had changed. The tables had turned. And now I was the one in control. As I turned to leave the room, I heard Jasmine's voice behind me, shaky and uncertain. Mom, what do you want me to do? I paused at the door, then turned back to face her. You want to make things right? Then prove it. Stop asking for my help. Stop asking for my money. Start showing me through your actions that you're ready to make amends. And with that I walked out. The door clicked softly behind me, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of relief. I had spoken the truth, but not in the way Jasmine expected. She thought I would be grateful for her apology, that I would be quick to forgive, quick to offer a solution. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I wasn't the invisible woman who would accept scraps of respect just because someone finally acknowledged me. I could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on me as I walked down the hallway. What had just happened? Did Jasmine truly understand what had just transpired? Could she even comprehend the complexity of the years I had spent building my empire while she remained oblivious to everything? I didn't think so. But then again, that was the point, wasn't it? I had spent my life hiding in plain sight, quietly accumulating wealth and influence. And now Jasmine, the very person I had tried so hard to protect, was finally beginning to understand what I had been doing all these years. As I reached the elevator, I hesitated for a moment. What was next? Could I really just walk away from all of this? Could I really leave my daughter to figure things out on her own? The thought seemed impossible. There was so much history between us, so many years of silent sacrifice, and yet so much pain. And what about the future? What would it hold for Jasmine, Devin, and their growing family? Would they be able to navigate the consequences of their own actions without me? I didn't know. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't have the answer. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and I stepped inside, taking a deep breath. As the doors closed, I glanced at my reflection in the polished metal. The woman staring back at me was a stranger. She was someone who had spent her life pretending to be invisible, pretending that she didn't matter. But now that person was gone. The real me, E.J. Beaumont, was finally here, and I was ready to face whatever came next. The next few days passed in a blur. Jasmine called me several times, but I didn't answer. I knew what she wanted. She wanted reassurance, answers, solutions, but I couldn't give her that. She needed to prove herself, to show me that she had learned something from everything that had happened. I wasn't going to make it easy for her, but there was something else, something deeper that I couldn't ignore. I knew that if I walked away entirely, I would regret it. For all her flaws, Jasmine was still my daughter. And despite everything that had happened, there was a part of me that still wanted to help her. But not out of guilt, not out of some misguided sense of responsibility. I wanted her to change because she needed to, because she had to understand that family wasn't about money, power, or status. It was about respect, love, and honesty. That evening, as I sat in my office sorting through papers, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Jasmine. "Mom, I need to talk to you. Please, just one more chance." I stared at the message for a long time, weighing my options. Could I really sit down with her again? Could I really let her into my world after everything that had happened? The thought seemed impossible, but the answer was already forming in my mind. I typed out a quick reply. "I'll meet you tomorrow. But this time it's on my terms." The next day, Jasmine showed up at my office, looking more nervous than I had ever seen her. She was dressed in a simple blouse and jeans, far removed from the luxury she had been accustomed to. I could tell that something had changed in her, but I wasn't sure if it was enough. "Mom," she said softly as she walked into the room, her eyes avoiding mine. "I've been thinking a lot about everything. About what you said, about how I treated you. I know I can't change the past, but I want to try and make things right." I didn't say anything at first. I just studied her, trying to gauge whether or not her words were sincere. She looked different, more humble, but could she truly change? Was she capable of understanding the depth of the damage she had caused? "I've done a lot of thinking too," I said finally, my voice steady. "And I'm willing to give you a chance, but understand this, there are no guarantees. You don't get to just waltz back into my life because you've realized that I'm not who you thought I was. You have to show me that you've changed. And not just in the way you talk, but in how you act. Because actions speak louder than words." Jasmine nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she sat across from me. "I understand," she said quietly. "I don't expect you to just forgive me. I don't expect anything from you. I just want to prove to you that I can be different, that I can be the daughter you deserve." Her words hit me harder than I expected. For so long, I had wanted her to say something like this. But now that she was saying it, I wasn't sure how to respond. Was this just another act? Another performance for my benefit? Or was she finally being honest with me? "Jasmine," I said, my voice softening, "you don't have to prove anything to me. You just have to be real. Stop pretending to be someone you're not. Stop pretending that everything can be solved with money. It doesn't work that way. What you need is not money, not power, not status. What you need is to rebuild trust, to rebuild a relationship that's been broken for years. And that's not something that can be done in a day." She looked at me, her eyes filled with determination. "I'll do whatever it takes, Mom," she said. "I know I've made mistakes, but I'm willing to work for it. I want to fix things." I stared at her for a moment, weighing her words. Could I really trust her? Could I really let her back into my life after everything that had happened? The thought was overwhelming. But at the same time, a small part of me wanted to believe her. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new. "All right," I said finally. "We'll take it one step at a time. But remember, Jasmine, this is not just about money. It's about respect. And it's about understanding that family comes before everything else. If you're ready to make that commitment, then we can move forward." Jasmine nodded, her eyes shining with tears. "I'm ready, Mom. I swear I'm ready." For the first time in a long while, I saw something real in her eyes. It wasn't greed, it wasn't desperation. It was something I hadn't seen in her for years: sincerity. As we sat there, the silence between us wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of possibilities. It was the beginning of something new. As we sat there, the silence between us wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of possibilities. It was the beginning of something new. The days that followed were unlike any we'd ever shared before. The tension that had always defined our relationship, the distance between us, was slowly starting to dissolve, but not without its challenges. Jasmine had promised to change, to rebuild the trust she had shattered. But words alone weren't enough. She had to prove it not just to me but to herself. Over the next few weeks she kept her distance, but in a way that was different from before. She didn't call me every day, asking for help or trying to find out more about my life. Instead, she showed up at my office unannounced, at first to apologize again, but then just to sit in silence, her eyes observing the world I had built, her curiosity obvious. I could see the wheels turning in her head as she tried to understand the woman I had become, the woman she had never known. One afternoon, as I was preparing to leave work, Jasmine appeared in the doorway, looking slightly out of place in the corporate world I inhabited. Her simple blouse and jeans were nothing like the luxury outfits she used to wear. But there was something different about her. She wasn't dressed for show. She was dressed for purpose. "Mom, can we talk?" she asked quietly. I nodded, setting down the papers I had been working on. "Of course. What's on your mind?" She stepped inside, hesitating for a moment before sitting across from me. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about what you expect from me. And I know I've been asking for too much, expecting you to just fix everything. But that's not fair. And I realize I can't change everything overnight." I watched her carefully, wondering if this was just another performance. But the sincerity in her eyes told me that something had shifted. "I've been trying," she continued, her voice steady but filled with vulnerability. "I've been trying to learn, to understand what it means to be responsible, what it means to respect people, to respect you. And I want to do more than just apologize. I want to prove that I'm not the person I used to be." Her words were simple, but they hit me like a wave. For the first time in years, I saw the daughter I had always wanted to see. Not the one who sought money or status, but the one who wanted to grow, to evolve. "You don't need to prove anything to me, Jasmine," I said softly. "But if you really want to change, if you want to make things right, then you have to prove it with your actions. Not just with words, not with promises. You've got to show me that you can put others before yourself. That you can think beyond your own desires." She nodded earnestly, her face filled with determination. "I'm ready, Mom. I'm ready to do whatever it takes." It wasn't much, but it was enough for me to believe that something was finally happening. That maybe, just maybe, this was the turning point. A few days later, Jasmine came to me with a proposition. "I've been thinking about what you said, about proving myself," she began, her voice tentative but confident. "I've decided to volunteer at one of the charity organizations you support. I want to give my time, not just my money. I want to make a real difference, even if it's small." I was surprised, but it was the first step toward what I had hoped for. Jasmine had always been about appearances, about looking the part. But now, she wanted to contribute without expecting anything in return. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot. "I think that's a good idea," I said, offering her a smile for the first time in weeks. "It's a start. But remember, it's not just about volunteering. It's about understanding why you're doing it. Why you want to help others, not for recognition, but because it's the right thing to do." She nodded, her eyes bright with something I hadn't seen in her for years, genuine purpose. Over the next few months, I watched as Jasmine took on new challenges, slowly rebuilding her life from the ground up. She worked at the charity organization every weekend, her enthusiasm growing with each passing day. She didn't expect anyone to acknowledge her efforts. She didn't want praise or admiration. It was clear that she was beginning to understand the value of hard work, the value of giving without expecting anything in return. But it wasn't just the charity work. Jasmine's entire attitude began to change. She stopped asking me for money, stopped expecting me to solve her problems. She started taking responsibility for her own choices, no longer leaning on the crutch of entitlement that had defined so much of her life. One day she sat down with me, her eyes filled with gratitude and something deeper, respect. "Mom," she said, her voice steady, "I've been thinking about everything that's happened, about how I treated you, about what I've learned. And I just want to thank you for never giving up on me, even when I didn't deserve it." I wasn't sure how to respond. Her words were so simple, but they carried a weight that left me speechless. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The moment when Jasmine truly understood. Not just the value of money, but the value of family, of love, of respect. "You don't need to thank me, Jasmine," I said softly. "You've done the hard work. You've changed. And that's all that matters." But deep down, I knew that this wasn't the end. This wasn't the final chapter in our story. We were just beginning to rebuild, and it would take time, more time than I could possibly predict. There would be moments of doubt, moments of frustration, but there was also hope. Real hope. Because for the first time in years, I saw the possibility of a future where Jasmine and I could both find peace. Then one evening, as we sat together for dinner, I told her something I had been holding on to for a while. "I've been thinking," I began, "about the future. About everything that's happened and what it means for us. I've made some decisions about my business empire, and I've decided to make some changes." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with curiosity. "What kind of changes?" I smiled, knowing that this moment was important. "I'm going to invest more in philanthropy. I've spent my whole life building my business, but now I want to leave a legacy that means something more. I want to focus on giving back, helping others in the same way that I've been able to help myself." Jasmine's face lit up with excitement. "That sounds amazing, Mom. What can I do to help?" "You've already started helping, Jasmine," I said softly. "By changing, by proving to yourself and to others that you're capable of more. That's the greatest gift you could give me. And now we'll build something together." "You've already started helping, Jasmine," I said softly. "By changing, by proving to yourself and to others that you're capable of more. That's the greatest gift you could give me. And now we'll build something together." The words hung in the air between us, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of something in Jasmine's eyes. Hope, perhaps, or maybe a sense of purpose. It was as if she was finally beginning to understand that the future wasn't something handed to her, but something she had to create with her own hands, with her own actions. We spent the next few weeks working together. Not just in business, but in rebuilding the broken pieces of our relationship. The shift was slow, but it was real. Jasmine didn't try to force things or rush the process. She let the work speak for itself, and that was the most important part. She wasn't seeking immediate approval anymore. She had learned that the path to trust wasn't paved with apologies. It was paved with consistent, meaningful actions. One afternoon, Jasmine called me with exciting news. "Mom, I got a promotion at the charity. They want me to run a new initiative focused on providing financial literacy to underprivileged communities. They've seen the work I've been doing, and they want me to lead it. It's everything I've been working toward." I could hear the excitement in her voice, and for the first time in a long while I felt proud of her, not because of her achievements, but because of the person she was becoming. "That's amazing, Jasmine. I'm really proud of you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "This is just the beginning. Keep going. You're on the right path." As the weeks passed, our dynamic continued to shift. Jasmine wasn't the same person she had been when we first had that explosive confrontation. She wasn't seeking validation from me anymore. She was learning to validate herself. She wasn't trying to fix her mistakes with money or grand gestures. She was trying to fix them with sincerity, with actions that showed she had truly changed. Then one evening, as I sat in my office reflecting on everything that had happened, I heard a knock at the door. I looked up, expecting to see one of my colleagues, but instead there stood Jasmine, holding a small envelope in her hand. "Mom, can I talk to you for a second?" she asked, her voice calm but uncertain. I motioned for her to come in. "Of course. What's on your mind?" She hesitated for a moment before sitting down across from me. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said before, about proving myself. And I realized that I've been so focused on the idea of making amends that I forgot something important." I raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" Jasmine smiled faintly, her eyes softening. "I forgot to ask for your forgiveness. I've spent so much time trying to fix things and prove that I'm different, but I never stopped to really understand the damage I caused. The hurt I caused you. And I need to ask for your forgiveness, not just for what I've done, but for the years I spent not seeing you for who you really are." Her words hit me harder than I expected. For so long I had waited for Jasmine to come to this point, But now that it was happening, I felt a flood of emotions, relief, sorrow, and even a touch of anger. It wasn't that I wanted to hold on to my resentment, but the years of neglect, of being invisible, couldn't just vanish overnight. "I've never asked for your forgiveness, Jasmine," I said quietly, my voice steady. "And I'm not sure I'm ready to give it just yet. Forgiveness isn't something that can be rushed. It takes time, it takes trust, and most of all, it takes a real change in behavior." Jasmine nodded, her face soft with understanding. "I know. I don't expect it to happen overnight. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I understand now more than ever that you've always been the strongest person I know. I've seen it all along, but I was too blind to recognize it." I sat back in my chair, taking a deep breath. "And I've been just as guilty," I admitted. "I kept you at arm's length, Jasmine. I didn't let you in. I thought I was protecting myself, but I was also shutting you out." The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that spoke volumes, the kind that allowed us both to reflect on everything we had been through. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was holding everything inside. I felt like I could finally speak freely. "Jasmine," I said softly, "there's a lot that we need to work through. A lot that's been broken. But we can't do it in one conversation. It's going to take time. And we have to be patient with each other." She smiled, her eyes filled with hope. "I understand. I'm ready, Mom. I'm not going anywhere. I want to make things right, no matter how long it takes." As the days turned into weeks, Jasmine continued to show me, through her actions, that she was changing. She wasn't the same girl who had once mocked me. She wasn't the same woman who had walked out of my life in search of something she thought was more important. She was becoming someone who understood the true meaning of family. Someone who understood that love, trust, and respect weren't things that could be bought or manipulated. They had to be earned. One afternoon, as I was working on some important documents, Jasmine called me again, this time with even more good news. "Mom, I've been asked to speak at a financial literacy conference. They want me to talk about the work I've been doing with the charity and how we can help more people access financial education. It's a huge opportunity." I felt a wave of pride wash over me, and I couldn't help but smile. "Jasmine, that's incredible. I knew you had it in you." She paused for a moment before adding, "And I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. You taught me the importance of hard work, of resilience. I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for you." Her words touched me in ways I couldn't explain. I had spent so many years feeling invisible, feeling unappreciated, but now, for the first time, I realized that maybe I wasn't invisible after all. Maybe the person I had been all along, the quiet, invisible woman, had been making a bigger impact than I had ever realized. Over the following months, Jasmine continued to rise in her career, taking on more responsibilities and gaining more respect in the world she had once ignored. She no longer relied on me for validation or support. Instead, she built her own life, step by step, with the determination and grace that I had always known she had within her. And as for me, I finally found peace. The empire I had built wasn't just about money or power. It was about the people whose lives I had touched, the families I had helped, and the love that I had shared with those who mattered most. In the end, Jasmine and I didn't just rebuild our relationship. We forged something new, something stronger, something deeper. And it wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about redemption. It was about the kind of love that could survive anything, no matter how many years it took. As I reflect on the journey we've shared, I realize that true change doesn't come from the grand gestures or the flashy accomplishments. It comes from the quiet moments, the small steps we take toward redemption, growth, and understanding. My relationship with Jasmine wasn't fixed overnight, but with time, patience, and genuine effort, we were able to rebuild what had been broken. And that's the power of family. No matter how much distance grows between us, no matter how deep the wounds, love can still find its way back. So to anyone watching this, remember, you have the power to change, to heal, and to make things right. It's never too late to take that first step. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button to join this community and never miss a story that could inspire, motivate, and remind you of the power of love and second chances. Until next time, take care and keep believing in the possibility of change.